Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Paul Chamberlain, the Air Force guy here with Everything RVs podcast. And this evening, I'm so excited to be here to go ahead and go through with you part 2 of RV 101. And what we're going to be talking about this evening is how do you go ahead and decide what type of RV that you want to have? I mean, there's so many out there, as we talked about last week. But before I get started, keep in mind, listen, I'm bringing you this information free of charge. I refuse to charge my listeners, whether you're listening on the streaming services out there or whether you're watching here on YouTube. I refuse to go ahead and charge you for this information. And so with that, I have companies willing to go ahead and sponsor my program. And this evening, my sponsor is Extreme Heaters, a great company right out of here in Georgia, American-made product. They've been around since 2004. They started in the boat business, helping, and he started it just by making a heater for his own boat so that he could use it, leave it there at the dock, and then if it was a warm day or whatever, he was able to use it, but things didn't freeze. And they have expanded just recently, within the last 3 years, into the RV industry. I was introduced to it by a customer of mine that used it up in upstate New York, and he swears by it. So check him out. I've got the link down below the video here. And by the way, special discount code. It is good until January 31st of 2025. So check them out. And if this is something that you're looking to be camping or leaving your camper in extreme weather, you may want to consider. So without further ado, let's get back to the podcast. So it's time now. You're going to go ahead and decide that you want to go ahead and you've made a decision. You're going to get a pop-up, or not a pop-up, but an RV. And how do I determine what I'm going to go ahead and get, or what you're going to get? Now, what we're going to do is we're going to start off with pop-ups, because that's what we started off with before. And bottom line, with pretty much any of the RVs that we're discussing, other than the drivables, it's going to come down to your tow vehicle. And that's a whole nother ball of wax that we'll get into another time. But so why do people select pop-ups? Some people, they'll select a pop-up because, number one, that's what their vehicle can tow. Number two, maybe their HOA won't allow them to leave an RV in their driveway. So they're going to go ahead and be able to close this and pop it in the garage, which is a great way of doing it. So maybe they need to sleep a lot, but they don't, maybe they're tent campers and they decided, we just want to get up off the ground and maybe have some amenities, have places we can actually store some stuff as we're towing it there, and less setup time, the whole 9 yards. Now, when you're looking at pop-ups, they run the gamut. You have soft-sided, you have hard-sided, you have the tall wall ones. You have things like a Sylvan Sport, which is really a basic type pop-up that is also can be like a toy hauler. I mean, it runs the gamut with them. But you really have got to find out what's going to fit for you. You can go, the smallest pop-ups, it may be just a couple that you're looking for, and they have those small pop-ups. So pop-ups, that's what it really comes down to. You're looking to get up off the ground. Maybe you just want a dinette. Maybe you want to keep it simple. And they'll run the pop-ups will go all the way up to where they have bathrooms and they'll have hard walls around the shower and so forth. So those are something that you want to consider. They also have another thing considered a pop-up are these A-frames, like an A-liner. That's another type of pop-up because you've got to pop them up in order to use them. Then you decide whether you're going hard side or soft side. So that's dealing with the pop-up side of things. Next, we have the hybrid. Some people love the hybrid from the standpoint that it gives you kind of a cross between a pop-up and a travel trailer. So you're going to get all the amenities that you have in a pop-up, and it's smaller than a regular travel trailer. And the reason why it's smaller is because they call it a hybrid or expandable. And that is because of the fact that the bed ends will fold out. They tip out. It's not a slide out. It's they tip. They just kind of unlatch them and they drop out. And nowadays they just have the cables holding up. You don't have, in the old days where you had the bars you needed to put down below them. I mean, they have campers when they're closed, they could be right around, let's say 26 feet in length, but yet they have 3 pop outs and a slide out. So you have 4 queen beds in there, and then possibly a sofa that jackknifes to a little bed as well. And I say jackknife, kind of like a futon. But that way there you could sleep 8 adults in there if you wanted to, maybe a couple children. But now you have, by the beds popping out to the outside of the camper, you're taking that small space, and that small space that's inside feels much larger because you don't have the bed taking the area of the inside of the camper, which makes it phenomenal. And then, you get all the amenities. You get the kitchen, you get the big refrigerator, you get the stereo, the TVs, maybe 1 or 2 different TVs. You get the nice bathroom with an actual, it's not a wet bath like you would have in a pop-up. Actually has a separate shower, a sink, a toilet. So that may be a reason why you might want to go to a hybrid. Next, what you have is you're going to go into the regular travel trailers. Now, when you go to travel trailers, they have things that are small and tiny. It's like a A-line or escape. You have the Encore, the Rogs. You have some of the Intech style, the Soul. You have these small type campers. You also have teardrops, which are, when you're looking at teardrops, some of the teardrops out there, New Camp would be one that's actually considered as a teardrop. And they have all different sizes. They have a tag. They have a tab 320, a tab 360, a tab 400. Those are your teardrops. Then you also have what we call eggs, or people refer to them as eggs. And those are the ones that where they're fiberglass. It's a molded fiberglass type camper. Whether it's typically they're 2-piece, kind of like an Oliver or a Scamp and those things. Bigfoot may fall into that as well because of the way that they're set up. But those are another side of the travel trailers. Now, those typically, the ones that I've just talked to you about, typically don't have what we call slide outs because they're so small. But then you have your standard travel trailers. And again, back what I said when we talked about the pop-up, bottom line is it comes down to what you're capable of pulling safely for your truck. Now, ideally, the best thing would be, if you don't have a tow vehicle, I would highly recommend that you go ahead and try to narrow down exactly what you want, whether it be, a pop-up, a hybrid, travel trailer, fifth wheel, toy hauler, whatever. Find out what's going to work specifically for you if you're going to be getting something to tow. And then hopefully the sales professional that you're dealing with will understand how to explain to you with length, payload, and actual weights of the camper, being dry and gross, what type of a truck that you could safely tow that with. It's very important when you're looking at those. And I think I'm going to go ahead and dedicate just a podcast to talk about tow vehicles and run the gamut of that. I've hit on it a couple of times in the past, but it is something that I see all the time on Facebook and on posts, and people want to know whether or not they should, what type of truck they get. And there is so much misinformation out there that will take up a podcast in itself. So we'll get into that at a later date. My job is to kind of give you an idea when you're going to go look for a travel trailer, kind of what things you should be looking for. Ideally, I would recommend that you make a list possibly make a list of like 10 things that you may want to have in your camper. Now, obviously, if you're looking at more basic campers, you're probably not going to have a list of 10 things. But what things you might say, Paul, what kind of things would I be listing? Well, do you want to walk around queen bed? Do you want a Murphy bed? Do you want an actual residential queen bed? There's campers out there that have what they call an RV queen, and that could be 60 inches wide by 72 or 74 inches in length, whereas a residential queen is 60 wide by 80 inches long. Now, do you want a king bed? There's some campers, some travel trailers out there that actually have king beds in them. Do you want a tub, or is it okay to get a shower? Do you want a sink in the bathroom? Because some of these smaller trailers aren't going to have a sink. They may not have a sink in the bathroom. Are you okay with a wet bath? Do you want what we call a dry bath, meaning you have a separate shower and a separate toilet, and hopefully your separate sink in the bathroom? And again, coming down to what you're looking at will determine a lot of that. Obviously, the smaller teardrops and eggs may not have the room for you to have actually what we call a dry bath. Do you want an air conditioner? If depending on the size, how long of a camper you want. Something you need to keep in mind. Do not fall into the trap when you're out there looking at campers. If a salesperson walks you up to a camper and it says 26 on the outside for a model number, and they tell you this is a 26 footer, you can stop them right there and say, well, listen, please tell us, we want the overall length. We don't want you telling us what the box length is. Box length means nothing to a campground. Understand that length of a camper is what the campground, when you're booking a site, is going to ask you. They don't care what the interior length of the box is. They don't care what the exterior box is. They don't care. They don't care. They want the length. Then they're going to ask you, okay, how many slides do you have? Are they all on one side? Are they on both sides? How long are the slides? Those are the type of questions that campgrounds will ask you. And case in point, don't believe anybody when they tell you, oh, yes, well, model number is indicative of box size, not necessarily length. And that's the furthest thing from the truth. It used to be years ago. It has not been that way since I've been in the business since 2001. I would say that the closest one to the length of what the model number is would be Airstream. Airstream, some of their campers are actually about the length that they are. They have like a 16 footer and they had a 19 footer. I mean, their 28 model number is 28 foot 2 inches, but so is their 27 model number. Their 25 model numbers are 26 foot, like 1 or 2 inches. Their 30 footers, like they're about within, I would say they're within 2 inches to about 14 inches of the model number in Airstream. Most others, they're all over the place. For instance, a Micro Mini by Winnebago, 2106 FBS is like 22 foot 4 inches. It used to be 21 foot 11 inches. Now it's 22 foot because they changed something in it. Had to get a few more inches in there. So it isn't that you have a 21 foot box and then you got to add 3 feet for the box, right? I mean, for the your hitch part up in the front. That's what a lot of salespeople will tell you. But there's other 21 model numbers out there that will be 24 feet. They could be 26. They could be 27 feet. So please look at a brochure and see what they actually tell you. I think Lance is one of the very few out there that when you look at their specifications on their website, or maybe even in the brochure, they give you like the interior length, and then they give you an overall length. And that confuses people. And I see that constantly where people think they have a 27 foot camper when it's really more like 32 feet. For instance, my model number on my camper is a 26. It's a 26 model number. It's 32 foot 9 inches. So, make sure that you're aware of what you're looking for, because I can tell you there are a number of people out there that think they have a camper that is much shorter than what they have. So length would be one of the 10 items that you're going to want to go ahead and consider as maybe one of your top 10 features. You know, do you want outside stereo speakers? Do you want, not that it really matter if whether it had 20-pound LP tanks or 30-pound, because if it had 20 pounds, you can always switch it to 30. So that's really not a big deal there. But, you know, do you want an outside shower? Do you want a rear observation camera? Do not get yourself a backup camera, because backup cameras only work when you're backing up. Make sure that you ask for a rear observation camera. That is one that you can see while you're backing up as well as while you're towing it down the road. Very beneficial, and it helps with your line of sight when you're towing down the road, as well as when you're backing up. And then you also might want to consider side view cameras. Now, where would side view cameras come in to help? Well, a couple different things. When you're backing the camper, it would help you, because when you start turning it, now you can't see the one side of your camper. So that would give you, and especially if it's just one person, you don't have anybody to rely on to see whether you're going to hit something. That's something that would be helpful between the rear camera and a side camera be able to see. But then also on top of that, some of these are set up so if you go ahead and turn on your running lights while you're in your camper, you can have that screen plugged in inside, plug it into a 12 volt, and be able to see. It's kind of acts as security cameras, so you can see what's on either side of your camper and behind you. So just a little tidbit of information. So I don't know if that might be something you want. Tire pressure monitoring system. Again, that's something you can always add later as well. That's maybe not something you're going to see on a lot of your lower end campers. Do you want a leveling system on your travel trailer? You know, those are available, but when it comes down to it, it's going to come down to whether or not the features that you want, that you're going to want to pay the price for that particular feature. You know, maybe you like the benefit of that feature, but maybe you're going to say, you know what, it's just, you know what, it's not. For instance, let me give you a for instance here. Maybe you decide, you know, you want electric stabilizers because it can be easy. You just push a button and the two go down. However, what if somebody could show you that, hey, with a screw gun, 3/4 inch socket, I could put down 4 stabilizers faster than somebody pushing a button to put down the stabilizers, and they hold more weight. Understand the stabilizers are not levelers either. Okay. They're not leveling jacks. So make a list of what is important to you. Then, of course, you're going to be looking at the weights. So that would be your travel trailers. Next, you would have truck campers. Do you want a truck camper? And again, it comes down to, okay, what amenities you're going to want in the truck camper. You know, they have some of these truck campers where it's basically just a bed. Maybe it has a little pop-up. Maybe that's all that your truck can tow. You know, do you want something that you're going to be able to just put in the bed of your truck and close the door, the tailgate? Because some of these, you've got to have the tailgate down and sitting on the tailgate. So truck campers can get a little tricky with the weights. So keep that in mind. And again, it's going to come down to whether you want something a soft-sided that pops up, or whether you want to have hard-sided. And what, you know, do you want slides? Do you not want slides? Those are really the different things in truck campers that you need to decide what works for you. Fifth wheels. When it comes down to fifth wheels, I have people come in that have, maybe they have a 1/2 ton or they have a 3/4 ton truck and they're wanting a fifth wheel. Yes, fifth wheels are a lot easier to tow, a lot easier to hook up. Although we just came out with it, we just got a new, I can't wait to demo this. We just got a new weight distribution hitch system dropped off today, and it was set up for travel trailers. And I think this is something that's going to revolutionary. It's revolutionary thinking with the way it is. It's pretty awesome, and it's going to make things a lot simpler. And I'll be interested to see how well that does from a towing perspective as well, because of the way it's the technology that's in it. But anyway, fifth wheels are easier to tow. You tend not to have sway with a fifth wheel that you could have with a travel trailer. Now, there's always ways to mitigate those if you have a travel trailer. And that's something else. I think we're going to have to get into maybe the different styles of weight distribution that are out there and the terminology, because a lot of people get things messed up with weight distribution versus sway bars and all that stuff. So we'll say that for another lesson. But you have to be careful with that. I've had people come in with 3/4 ton trucks with payloads of like 2,100 pounds, and they want to tow a 38-foot fifth wheel. Now, weight-wise, they could probably do it from a tow perspective, but they're way over. They're about 1,000 pounds over on their payload by the time they're loading up the people and everything else. So be very careful. I know they have fifth wheels out there to say half-ton towable, but you have got to go in. I would tell you, go in, look at the floor plans, figure out, do you need a bunkhouse? Do you want a rear living room? Do you want a mid bunk? How many people you need to accommodate? There's so many variables with that. And then bottom line is, then do you have the truck that can tow it? Hey, keep in mind, there's another thing too. This is something that is a growing trend out there for those of you that may be afraid of towing, whether it's travel trailer or fifth wheel or whatever. This is a growing trend that I see out there where people are going away for 3-6 months, whatever, to a campground. They don't even have a truck. All they do is when they're ready to go home or ready to go to another campground, they just call it a tow company and have them come and pick it up. They just hop in their car, they'll button it all up and it's ready to go. And then they'll meet the person at the next campground. So they can have that thing buttoned up before they even have it picked up. So that way they get it a day or two head start, so they can take their time getting to the next campground or getting home, whatever works for them. So keep that in mind in the event that you are one that says, you know what, geez, I really don't want to spend 80, 100 grand on a truck, but I love the idea of this 42 or fifth wheel or this toy hauler that's huge, gives me all these things, gives me that opportunity. Keep that in mind. That is something that is available to you. So look at not only the different fifth wheels, but take a look, and you've got to take reviews that you see online, complaints that you see online out there, take them with a grain of salt. People are more apt to complain than they are to give good reviews. So be sure that when you're reading people about, whatever it is that they're complaining about, take it with a grain of salt, because for every one that is complaining, I am sure there are dozens, if not more, hundreds of people that are loving it and aren't having issues. Understand that when you buy an RV, chances are there's something going to go wrong at some point in time. Now it's going to come down to whether or not you're handy enough to maybe make a little attempt to repair what's going wrong or whatever, or whether you're going to have a mobile tech come out, or whether you want to take the time to take it back to a dealer to have them do it. So understand that those things do happen. So fifth wheels, again, go take the time and look at the different fifth wheels. Truly look at the construction of these things and figure out what's going to work best for you. Toy haulers. Now, toy haulers come in a vast majority. There's so many different types of toy haulers out there. You have travel trailers, you have hybrids, you have like cargo. It's a cargo trailer style hybrid or toy hauler RV style that are out there. You have fifth wheels. You even have pop-ups out there like the Sylvan Sport Go. They have some of these pop-ups where they have a front deck on the front. I say they'll put a front deck on of course they'll put the front deck on the front. They'll have a deck on the front or a deck on the rear where you can put things. So they run the gamut. And it's, again, bottom line is, what's it come down to? It comes down to your tow rating, right? So, but look at the different amenities, find out whether or not, you want something with a slide, without a slide. Do you want stick and tin? What do I mean by stick and tin? Stick and tin is where they're building it with 2x2s for the wall, for the construction of the walls, just like they would for a house, but houses are 2x4s, right? Or 2x6s, 2x8s, whatever. They're using 2x2s. Typically it's battened in installation, and then they have the wall on the inside and they have metal on the outside. Then you have what they call fiberglass, or there's metal sidings. So it really comes down to what type of an outside do you really want, is what it's going to come down to. Now, with all of this, something I should have started with also, something I would highly recommend you do before you go out looking. This probably should have been probably your first step. Make sure that you set a budget for what you're looking at getting. Don't just go ahead and set a budget of a monthly payment, because there's a lot of people out there. Boy, I'll tell you what, they will make that. They'll make that one that's maybe you were thinking you had a $30,000 budget and you weren't even thinking about payment, but then you get in there and they tell you, well, listen, we can get you this one for $200, or let's say $300 a month. And you're thinking, oh boy, that's perfect. That'll work for me. But ends up being more than what you would have been able to pay afford from a budget if you were going to pay cash, for instance. Now, you can kind of budget from a monthly payment size and it amount somewhere. It's about, if you want to put it in perspective, $100. And it varies, folks. It's going to come down to the affordability, well, your credit rating, and there's a lot of different things within that also, how long they're financing it and so forth. But typically about $150 a month for about every $10,000. That'll kind of give you a ballpark of what you could expect. Now, that's depending on how much you're putting down as well. Typically, banks like to see somewhere between 10 to 20%. And I'm just generalizing. I am not giving you things that are set in stone, because there are so many variables when it comes to this. So be very careful. I know I was speaking with a friend of mine. He went in to sign paperwork, and luckily he was in the car business. He was buying an RV, and he understood the financing aspect. They told him what his payment was going to be before he came to pick it up. And it was supposed to be a 10-year loan. When he went to pick it up, the paperwork had it as a 20-year with that same payment. What did they just do to him? Making a heck of a lot of money on that one. So make sure you're careful when you're looking at that. Get the terms in writing before you go and sign. A reputable dealer will give you the terms and the figures before you go and pick up the camper. I know there were some dealers out there, and I'm sure if they're still out there, but that would, all you'd know is, what a monthly payment is with the amount down. That was it. You came in to go ahead and sign, and boy, I mean, the amount that you were buying, it was astronomically higher than what you had anticipated. The payment was what they told you, but if you would have known what they were charging you on top of what they said they were charging you, I think you would have had a different frame of mind. So be careful out there. So next, let's talk about motorhomes. Now, why would you want a towable or want a motorhome? The thought is you're going to, depending on which ones you're getting, not class, let's set class B's aside for a minute. Whether you're getting a class A or a class C, typically you're going to be towing whether you're getting a travel trailer or a towable, or if you're doing a drivable. Now, what do I mean by that? If you're towing something, you have a truck, you're towing something. Okay. If you have a motorhome and you want to bring a car with you, so you have something to putz around and go do sightseeing and things of that nature, you're towing a car. The difference is this: if you're towing a fifth wheel, pop-up travel trailer, or any of those things with a truck, you can back up with that travel trailer attached. If you are towing something behind a drivable, you can't. So keep that in mind when you're deciding on whether or not you want to tow or you want to drive. What do you want to do? You know, some people, luckily nowadays, things have changed so much. And just to kind of give you an idea, had a manager of mine way back when was taking a trip across the country. And he was taking a 36-foot motorhome with a family. And he was up in the air whether he was going to tow or whether he was going to not tow. He eventually decided not to tow anything. In the 6-week trip across the country, he only rented a vehicle twice, 2 days. That was it. The rest of the time, he used the motorhome to get around. So, but now today, in today's, you know, with the way things are today, depending where you're going, I mean, yeah, you could call Enterprise, get a rental car for the time frame, because that's less wear and tear than towing it, right? If you flat tow, it's less wear and tear there. You got to look at the expense of whether you're doing a blue ox or whatever, or the tow dolly, or if you're flatbed towing it, you know, there's expenses. Then you got to figure out, okay, where am I going to put that piece when I get to where I'm going? That's not difficult when you're flat towing. That makes it simple. But the wear and tear on the vehicle, you're going to get the added mileage, all that stuff. So those are things you need to, you know, decide what is going to work best for you. Also, now we have, you know, electric bikes. You've got Uber, you know, you have so many different options nowadays. So you can take that stuff in consideration. Now, Class A's, those typically are going to be like 27 feet and up. Some might be 26, but let's just say for today's purpose, 27 feet up to about 40 feet for Class A gas motorhomes. Now, why would you want to have a gas motorhome versus a diesel pusher? Bottom line is this. If you've got to ask what my fuel mileage is, you're probably not going to be one for a diesel pusher. Okay? Or a Super C for that matter. Because those things, the cost of fuel and the amount of miles per gallon that they're getting is horrible. You know, you could be getting on, at best, with these diesel pushers or Super Cs, you could be getting maybe 8 miles a gallon. Maybe, depending on the size, you might get 10 going downhill. Your best fuel mileage is when you have it parked in the campground. But Class A gas motorhomes, again, I mean, they've gotten a little better, but you can probably expect somewhere between, depending again on the size, somewhere between about 7 to 8, maybe 9 on a good day. But keep that in mind. I mean, if you're towing and you're towing something that's larger, heck, you might be getting 8, 9 miles a gallon. I know I was towing a cargo trailer behind my truck and getting about 6 miles a gallon. So, but the benefit is when I disconnect, like when I towed my camper, I think the worst I got was about 9 miles a gallon. But when I disconnect, I could get 20 miles a gallon. That's the difference when you have a tow vehicle. So it comes down to, okay, do you want something with slides? Do you want something without slides? How many people do you need to accommodate from a sleeping perspective? How many people do you need to accommodate to safely go down the road the way you'd want to go down the road? You know, I know a lot of people always ask, well, Paul, do I need to have everybody in a seatbelt? And that's kind of a gray area. You know, when you're looking at school buses, most of these school buses don't have seatbelts. So I can tell you there were many times that I drove motorhomes with my family, and, you know, they were up and around. Some were getting up in the bed when we were in Class C. Some were in the bed back in the back watching TV. They were all over the place. That's the beauty of having a drivable. The family is not confined to their seats. If you have a dog, they're not confined to laying on the floor or being in the back of your truck or whatever. They could just be part of the family. They could be laying up by you. They could be sitting up in the front seat, looking out the windshield. Heck, I had times when I was on back roads going slow where my dog hopped up on the front dash of the Class A I was in, had to find a place to pull over to get her down off of there. But, you know, these are things that dogs kind of like, and they gravitate to this stuff. So Class A motorhomes, or any motorhome for that, whether it's a Class A, Class B, Class C, Super Cs, diesel pushers, that is a big benefit of having a motorized. Somebody wants to get up and get a drink. They need to go to the bathroom. You don't have to pull over. It's right there. Now, if the driver needs to go to the bathroom, obviously they don't have these, things set up where you push a button and it self-drives. They don't have that, folks. So you're going to have to pull over somewhere in order to use the facilities. So that's some things to think about. Now, people always ask me, Paul, why should I get a diesel pusher versus a Class A gas? And here's the benefits of a diesel pusher. Not all, but majority of them. If you're getting the higher end ones, you're going to have an air ride system. You're going to have air brakes. The fact is, when you're driving, you're up front, the engine's in back. When you're sleeping, the generator's up front, you're in back sleeping. So you don't have that noise factor that you have when you're in a Class A gas. You're driving over the engine in a Class A gas. Now, they've gotten much better than what they used to be. And those of you that know what I'm talking about out there. The older ones, you'd barely be able to talk to your partner sitting in the seat across from you. You could even barely hear the stereo. They've gotten so much better. You can actually have conversations with people behind you. Now, a difference with a diesel pusher is you've got to take into consideration is the expense to maintain them, because the oil changes are going to be considerably more. Oil changes are going to be about the same time frame if you're using synthetic oils on your gas motorhome as they are with your diesel. But then also keep in mind with your diesel pusher, you also have a diesel generator for the most part. And you're going to be needing to have that serviced. And I always tell people service them at the same time. Although the generators, you're supposed to be servicing them like at first 50 hours, then like every 100 hours thereafter. So, or once a year. And then from the changing the oil on the motors, it comes down to how many miles you're driving a year. Now, yes, some of these diesel pushers will allow you longer mileage between oil changes. However, but it's that or once a year. So unless you're driving a whole heck of a lot, and that'd be a reason why you'd want a diesel pusher typically, because you're doing a lot of driving. So hopefully that helps you on that. Class B motorhomes. Those are your van styles motorhomes, the van. Now, why would you want one of those? A lot of those, they're HOA approved or can be HOA approved to be in your driveway because they almost look like a van with an AC on the roof, right? And they run the gamut. They could be 16 foot long up to about 24 and a half feet long. But they're very comfortable. Some of them can accommodate up to 4 people, maybe more, depending on the layout and whether they have that blow-up mattress type thing that goes across the seats and so forth. So Class B van is going to come down to, do you want something that's like small, that's going to be able to be used maybe as a daily driver? Some people do use Class B motorhomes as a daily driver, but then they're also using them to go from point A to point B. They like the fact that, when they stop at a gas station or they need to use a bathroom, they've got a bathroom. They've got something they could throw in the microwave. They've got a sink. They've got all the amenities of a regular motorhome for the majority of the part. Most of them are going to even have TVs. There are some that don't. Next thing would be Class Cs. Now, in the Class Cs, it's going to come down to how big of a Class C you want. Again, 21 foot, and they typically run, the regular Class Cs go up to about 32, 33 feet. Then when you get into the Super Cs, they can go up to about 45 feet. Again, it's going to come down to budget, whether you want gas, diesel. Do you want air ride seats? Do you want the big Freightliner chassis? You want a Mercedes type chassis? Do you want diesel, gas? You're looking for a Ford, Chevy, a Dodge? They run the gamut for the Super Cs. So keep that in mind. Hopefully I've answered any questions. If you have any questions, by all means, put them down below. I do appreciate everybody that watches, that likes and subscribes. I appreciate everybody out there. And please do comment, help out with my algorithms out here. And next week, I got a big surprise for you. We're gonna be skipping the podcast for a YouTube live, 7 p.m. next Friday evening. So, matter of fact, let me see what date that is, because I didn't even think about that before I get on here. So we're talking about, boy, how about that? December 13th. How about that? We're going to do a live YouTube. This will be a question and answer. So you'll be able to come on and ask your questions, regardless of what they are in relations to RVs. If you want to be able to ask a question, you need to sign in using like an email address so that way you can actually ask a question. Because if you're just popping on YouTube, yeah, you could watch, but if you have a question, you're not going to be able to ask a question. So, but I do appreciate everyone out there, and please do check out my sponsor, Extreme Heaters. So I can't say this week, I can't say same time, same bat channel, can I? So next week, 7 p.m., I'll be back at you. So take care. Appreciate you watching.